as you can see by the title, these are all the books that I read in the month of February, having a full-time job. I'm not a very fast reader. It takes me way longer to read a book, maybe because I'm reading in English and this is not my native language, but I do try to read faster and faster because of the amount of books that are coming out every month that I'm genuinely interested to read, and I am working on my speed and I'm doing some progress. The first book that I read this month is Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. It's a mystery thriller. And in this book, we are following Rowan, and she stumbles across an ad for a live-in nanny, and this opportunity seems too good to miss. It has an amazing salary. When she arrives at the house for her first interview, she's stunned by the luxury with all the modern conveniences, by the beautiful Scottish Highlands, and by the picture-perfect family as it seems. What Rowan doesn't know that she is actually stepping into a nightmare, one where a child ends up dead and Rowan is in prison awaiting for a trial for murder. And this book starts with her writing to a lawyer from the prison where she explains all the events that happened during her stay in that house. I enjoyed this book. I gave this book 4 stars. It seemed rather long, detailed in parts that were not necessary. I found some repetitions with slight variations in the plot. It wasn't super engaging all the way through, but overall it was a very nice thriller. I loved the ending and some plot twists I didn't see coming. It's by 4 stars. The next book that I read this month was A Dawn of Onyx. That is the first part of The Sacred Stones by Kate Golden. It's a fantasy, and I really enjoyed this book. In this book, we're following Arwen, and she has been taken prisoner by the most dangerous kingdom on the continent and made to use her rare magical abilities to heal the soldiers of the vicious Onyx King. Arwen is trying to find a way to escape and reunite with her family. However, it's not so easy. This kingdom where she is at is surrounded by the ancient weakened woods, and she cannot trust anyone to help her escape. There is lots of different monsters and creatures that she's not aware of that are living in the woods, and she has to navigate the blackstabbing royals, dark magic, dangerous beasts, and she doesn't know yet, but she has a power within her. If she can harness it, she just might be able to escape with her life and hopefully with her heart. I loved this book, starting from the middle. It started quite slow. In fantasy, usually the authors take time to create the world, to create the characters, and that's understandable. By the end of this book, I gave it 4.5 stars. I felt like the beginning was all over the place, but I enjoyed the characters a lot, and I honestly cannot wait to going back to the next book. There was a lot of relationship drama in this book, a few plot twists that I didn't expect, and I love the world building and even the pieces of politics that didn't seem too boring or overwhelming. Really enjoyed it. The next book that I read is probably the closest to the 5-star rating for this month, and it is Stay Awake by Megan Goldin. It's a mystery thriller. In this book, we are following Liv, and she wakes up in the back of a taxi with no idea where she is and how she got there. When she's dropped off at the door of her home, a stranger answers, and a stranger who now lives in the apartment and forces her out. She reaches for her phone to call for help, but instead of the phone, she finds a blood-stained knife. That's when she sees that her hands are covered in black pen scribbled message, "Stay awake." 2 years ago, Liv was living with her best friend, dating a new man, and thriving as a successful writer for a trendy magazine. And today, she does not know what is going on. She comes across the news where the person was stabbed last night by the knife, and she starts suspecting herself as the murderer. I gave this book 4.75 stars. This book literally starts with the main character finding a blooded knife in her pocket and not remembering anything. It's very fast-paced. I believe I finished this book in just over 2 days. Again, lots of plot twists. In every chapter, we get to know a little bit more about Liv and her past. We also do jump in time from 2 years ago to the present a lot, and I do love this about the book. However, the reason why I didn't give it 5 stars, there was something about the main character's decisions that just did not sit with me. I understand if she was a little bit more rational, then the book would not exist. However, it was a bit hard for me to overcome the stupidity of her actions sometimes. Overall, I very enjoyed this book. The next book that I read in February is One of Us is Lying. That is the first part of the series by Karen McManus. It's a young adult thriller mystery. The book is following 5 students in Bayview High who walk into detention, and we have the brain, the beauty, the criminal, the athlete, and the outcast. And the outcast is the creator of the so-called Bayview High gossip app, and only the outcast never makes it out of that classroom. Before the end of detention, he's dead. And according to the investigators, his death wasn't an accident. On Monday, he died, and on Tuesday, he'd planned to post juicy reveals about all 4 of his high-profile classmates. which makes all 4 of them suspects in his murder. They all have secrets. What really matters is how far they would go to protect them. I know there is a lot of hype around this book, but I gave this book 2 stars. It's kind of the right book, but the wrong time. I didn't enjoy the book as much as I could have enjoyed it if I read it 10 years ago, or even when I was going to high school. It seemed too young adulty for me, and that's a good thing because this is exactly the target audience for this book. It's exactly what this book is. You want to have a sense that you're following school kids, and for me, I did feel like that, but the time for me wasn't right for this type of content. It's too much of a teenage drama and gossiping that I didn't care about that much. The next one, unfortunately, was also a letdown for me, and this is The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. That's also a young adult romance, and I know I can see the pattern here. Young adult novels probably is something that I outgrew a little bit, or maybe it's just not the time in my life where I would enjoy them. I find that I enjoy thrillers a little bit more. The book is following Emily Hornby, and she was dumped by her boyfriend on the Valentine's Day, and then she was upset. She went to her grandma, fell asleep, and woke up again on the Valentine's Day. And so she keeps reliving this day over and over and over again, trying to figure out why she cannot move on with her life. I didn't care even a little bit how this book is gonna end. The same idea, the right book but the wrong time. I think that I would have enjoyed this book 10-15 years back, or maybe not. I gave this book 2 stars. I also realized that I do not like the Groundhog Day type of plots because sometimes it feels like a chore to read certain parts that we already know happened. I don't know, tell me if you feel the same about the Groundhog Day type of scenarios, but I find them somewhat boring. Moving on, the next book that I read was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. It's a mystery thriller, and this is the first book that I enjoyed by Riley Sager. We are following Maggie, and when she was a kid, her parents moved into this Victorian mansion, and they spent only 3 weeks there before fleeing in the dead of night. Later on, her father recounted all the events in a non-fiction book called The House of Horrors, and his tale of ghostly happening and encounters with the malevolent spirits became a worldwide phenomenon. And today, Maggie is a restorer of old homes. She's too young to remember what actually happened in that house. She also thought that this house was sold long ago, but when her father passes away, she inherited this house, and she went back to the house to restore it, to prepare it for sale, but also to understand what happened when she was a kid. I gave this book 4 stars. I enjoyed this book a lot, even though at times it seemed a little boring and certain characters were not appealing at all. I enjoyed the ending of this book. I did not predict how this book is going to end. I also like the atmosphere of the old Victorian mansion, ghostly stories, and it was rather spooky at times. And for me personally, the best time to read this book was before going to sleep at night. The next book I will be talking about is very controversial in my opinion. I know it has very high reviews on Goodreads, but again, it's something that I just did not enjoy, and it was really hard for me to go through this book. This is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. This is a book club pick, so personally I would probably not have picked this book to read. This book is following chemist Elizabeth Zott, who is living in 60s, and she is surrounded by all her male team at Hastings Research Institute that have a very specific use on inequality, except for Calvin Evans, who is a lonely and brilliant Nobel Prize winner, and he falls in love with Elizabeth Zott's mind. A few years later, Elizabeth Zott finds herself not only a single mother, but the reluctant star of America's most beloved cooking show Supper at 6. Elizabeth's unusual approach to cooking proves revolutionary, but as her following grows, not everyone is happy because, as it turns out, Elizabeth Zott isn't just teaching women to cook, she is daring them to change the status quo. I give this book 2 stars. I have very mixed feelings about this book. On the one hand, it touches upon very important social topics of women in science, inequality, misogyny, and sexism, and how women navigated their path through the male-dominated research groups. This book definitely promised to deliver a lot, but unfortunately it didn't happen for me. Certain traits of Elizabeth Zott made me cringe and understand male perspective a little better, like in situations where she was arguing with her research partner over some scientific issues and would suddenly become emotional and blame him for being a man, and that was counterproductive to what she was actually trying to achieve. I could never know how actually women scientists felt in 50s and 60s, how they expressed themselves, and so couldn't know the author as well. Another thing about this book is the way it was written for me was extremely boring. The next book that I read this month was What Lies in the Woods by Kate Alice Marshall. It's a mystery thriller. This book has super interesting premises. They were 11 when they sent a killer to prison. They were heroes, but they were liars. This book is following Naomi Shaw, and she used to believe in magic. 20 years ago, she and her two best friends, Cassidy and Olivia, spent the summer roaming the woods and imagining a world of ceremony and wonder, and they called it the Goddess Game. The summer ended suddenly when Naomi was attacked, and she survived her 17 stab wounds and lived to identify the man who had hurt her. The girl's testimony puts away a serial killer who is wanted for murder of other 6 women. They were heroes, but they were liars. And for decades, the friends have kept a secret worth killing for. I gave this book 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this novel, super fast-paced, it's a page-turner for sure. The only reason why this book didn't get 5 stars for me is actually because of the ending. The ending felt a bit too much. I do enjoy great plot twists, but in this specific book there was a lot of plot twists. It was plot twist after plot twist after plot twist. At some point it already felt absurd. If the book ended a couple plot twists before, I would be absolutely happy and will give it 5 stars. The next book that I read is The Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. It's a YA fantasy. And in this book, we are following Kiru, and she's going to the art school and fills her sketchbooks with the monsters that may or may not be real. She is prone to disappearing on mysterious errands, and she speaks many languages, not all of them human, but her bright blue hair actually grows out of her head that color. Who is she? This is the question that haunts her. We have black handprints that are appearing in the doorways, scorched there by winged strangers, stuck in dusty shops with devil's supply of human teeth that grow dangerously low, and of course a brutal, overworldly war. I gave this book 3 stars. I feel like this book is more vibes than actual substance to the plot. It almost reads as a fairy tale, and I failed to develop any connection to the main characters. This story that was supposed to be epic seemed a bit off, and I don't think I will continue the series. The next book that I read is Shatter Me, and this is the first book in the series, Shatter Me by Tahereh Mafi, and it is dystopian YA fantasy. We are following Juliet, and she haven't touched anyone exactly 264 days. The last time she did it was an accident, and the establishment locked her in for murder. No one knows why Juliet's touch is fatal. As long as she doesn't hurt anyone else, no one really cares. The world is too busy crumbling to pieces to pay attention to a 17-year-old girl. Disasters are destroying the population, food is hardly to find, birds don't fly anymore, in the clouds are the wrong color, and the establishment said their way was the only way to fix things, so they threw Juliet in a cell. Now many people are dead, and the survivors are whispering war, and the real establishment has changed their mind. They finally decided that Juliet was exactly what they need right now to win the war. I gave this book 3 stars as well. The synopsis of this book gave me more information than the book itself. It felt like a typical post-apocalyptic dystopian story like many others. Again, there were more vibes and not enough substance to the plot. The events felt rushed. I can't say that I enjoyed the main characters in a monologue and the choice of words. It felt a bit forced for me. I will go back to this series later to read the second book and see if it can pull me in the adventures of these main characters, but for now I'm taking a break from the series. And the final book for me was super important because I love the author, but I absolutely did not like the first book. And I decided to come back to the series and read the second book, and I enjoyed it so much. And this is The Crown of Midnight. It's the second book of Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. I did not like the first book at all. Certain events felt abrupt. There was not too much sense in the love triangles that was going on, in the character's decisions regarding her love interests, and so on and so forth. Felt a little childish for me. The Crown of Midnight is the continuation of Celaena, who is the king's champion. She's an assassin that murders for the king, that she absolutely hates. Magical things are happening in this world. The monsters are coming from different portals. She hates the king, and she's also trying to figure out why these monsters are appearing from the portals and attacking the world and attacking the people in the castle. There is a lot that's going on in this book, and I cannot wait to go to the book 3. That's all the books that I read, 11 books this month. I did enjoy pretty much everything that I read. I did have a couple of misses, but we can't go without that. And I'm super excited to see how many books I'm gonna finish in March.